This is the BBC.
Yes, good morning and welcome to Saturday Live. And should this programme choose to relocate to a desert island in these, shall we say, interesting times, then we would do just fine. With Ray Mears, survival expert, snatching fish from the sea with his bare hands.
We wouldn't get bored either with the BBC's young musician Sheku Kanu-Mason to entertain us with tunes on the cello.
Explaining the science of a composting toilet while keeping us psychologically intact shouldn't present too great a problem to vlogger Charlie McDonnell.
Our listener, the adventurer Paula Reid, could skipper the escape raft, having given up her job to sail around the world.
Paula, what about you? Longest time outdoors. I mean, at this point, we're talking about anything in a queue for the, for the latest phone, Girl Guide camp, whatever it might be. What was your longest period outdoors?
So, longest period in total is 54 days.
Wow.
And I've done that twice, once in the Antarctic and once on a yacht.
And what's it like? Is it something that you just get used to and you forget about being indoors? At what point does it feel natural?
I think I'm with Ray. I love the outdoors. It's an amazing place and I feel at home in the outdoors. So there's no definite move from inside to outside, but it's that constant feeling of being sort of exposed to the weather and to the amazing scenery and the environment. It's a very sort of stimulating place to be.
Paula, how much of this, I know your kind of outdoor adventures are on a different level to Ray's, but how much of what Ray is talking about chimes with you?
I like different environments, so I love jungle. I've just talked about being on the sea and being in Antarctica, which are so not jungle, but I love the sort of richness of a jungle atmosphere. So woodland, yes, the English woodland, beech trees and bluebells and all that, I totally adore.
And this is Saturday Live with Richard Coles and Asma Mayer. Our guests this morning are the bushcraft and survival expert Ray Mears, listener Paula Reid, BBC Young Musician 2016 Sheku Kanu-Mason, and science vlogger Charlie McDonnell. Paula Reid, as we have mentioned before, was listening to Saturday Live one weekend, heard a discussion about changing your life and emailed us because that's what she did back in 2004 when she quit her job working in conference and events management. And you quit it to do what, Paula?
Well, with no sailing experience whatsoever, of course, I quit it to sail around the world in the Global Challenge Round the World Yacht Race. And 10 months at sea.
Was this something that you had your eye on for many years?
No, I hadn't even heard of it. I was looking for a boyfriend at the time, went on a blind date. The gentleman I met, I didn't fall in love with, but we did have a conversation about what to do with my life, and he'd seen one of those adverts on the tube saying this could be you, and there's all those normal people on a boat, the housewife, vet,
yes,
that
I remember
advert,
that advert,
teacher and so on. And he said, well, I've seen this post on the tube today, what about maybe sailing around the world? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I literally went home that night, googled it, found the Clipper Around the World Yacht Race, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. But the Clipper goes the right way around the world, which is easier, because then I found the Global Challenge, which is the world's toughest yacht race, because it goes the wrong way. So it goes against the prevailing conditions and around Cape Horn, and it's a 10-month-long, 36,000-mile yacht race.
Right. So hang on a minute. You had this in your mind and you were still working conference and events management. How long did it take you to kind of extricate yourself from that and get prepared to go around the world?
Most people have 5 years' notice. They apply for the Global Challenge. They get their place 4 years before. And then, of course, they train and practice and fundraise. I had 2.5 months' notice. So I literally handed in my notice. I had to really work through the notice because I had to save a lot of money to pay to do this thing. So my days got longer and longer as I was going to work. I was working in a hospice in the evenings, and I was trying to learn my ropes. I had ropes tied to my bedpost, not for the other reasons, but ropes. To practice my knots. Sailing training whenever I could. It was mad. So I was alive, living for 20 hours a day, trying to pack everything in just before leaving.
So many questions, but let's get on to the actual trip itself. How long did it take and what was it like?
It was amazing. It was totally amazing. It was highest highs, lowest lows, literally, and sort of psychologically and everything. It was a huge experience. I loved it. So it was a 10-month long race. It's in 7 legs. The experiences, talking about nature for a start, you've got, the southern lights, whales, dolphins, the phosphorescence at night, the torpedoes of dolphins scooting along the side of the boat at night, leaving their trails of phosphorescence. So amazing natural beauty out there, sunrises and sunsets every day. Then you've got the teamwork, and there was 18 on the boat, and you're stuck together on this 72-foot long steel boat for months on end, which you would have thought, would drive you all crazy. But actually you form, the longest, biggest bonds you've ever formed in your life. So out of our one boat, for instance, there are 4 couples that got together, so 3 weddings, plus myself and my other half still together 12 years later, and 6 babies in total came out of our boat. So it's a very bonding experience. And then there's the skill and the manual dexterity of having to sail a racing yacht. You're competing 24 hours a day for weeks and weeks on end. So 4 times a day you get the statistics of how well you are performing against those other 11 boats. And that really sharpens the mind when it comes to getting maximum of performance out of the boat.
But presumably you were learning a lot on the job as well, because you only had 2.5 months to prepare.
Yes, so I was a complete novice.
And the others weren't, or were?
There was a mixture, to be
Right.
honest. There's some very, very experienced sailors who'd been dying to do it since they were 4, and then me lopping along, with a couple of months' notice and no experience whatsoever. So I learnt on the job, which was scary because life and death is at the end of the rope. And my job was in what's called the snake pit, where all the coils of rope look like snakes. But there's 23 ropes and 3 massive winches, and you are literally, in a difficult force 10 gale on our first day. It is a life and death situation, and we had man overboard within 10 hours of the start.
Oh my goodness.
So it was scary.
What happened?
So it
wasn't you, was it?
No, and it wasn't my fault either. I was off watch. I just want to say I was off watch. No, it was very rough. It was a force 10 gale in October coming out of Portsmouth. Huge conditions, huge waves and weather and wind, as you can imagine. And one of our crew got knocked off by a wave, but we had our values, which were safe, happy, fast. And he was tied on. He was clipped physically on. So although he went over, broke 3 ribs, we managed to pull him back on board. But that was within 10 hours of the start.
Blimey.
Well, I'm being sick all over the place.
Oh God, helpfully. I know that you also skied to the South
Yes.
Pole. Now, presumably this was after, not before.
This was after. I literally got back last year.
And what, you're now just bitten by this kind of adventuring bug? Why ski to the South Pole?
Well, I've always loved adventuring and the outdoors and challenging myself. For me, a lot of it is about what am I made of and what stuff is inside of me and how deep can I dig. And I've found that I think we all humans are amazing and we are so much more capable than we realise. So for me, a lot of it is about pushing myself and challenging myself and living life to the full, richly and deeply and amazingly. So part of it was the drive of seeing what I'm made of. I had no idea I'd be able to do this thing.
Is it also about, a question for you as well, Ray, I guess, is it also about the way life intensifies when you actually risk serious things?
Yes.
You're not going to just kind of get wet feet or maybe kind of forget where you park the car, but very serious things can happen.
Do that.
Yeah, of course.
The intensity, it's also sometimes called sort of growth acceleration. You're pushing yourself steeper than normal life would normally provide you, the opportunity with. So I'm studying positive psychology, for instance, and there's a thing called the hero's journey, where life can present you with trauma and challenge and difficulty, and if you can fight your way through it, then you become more mature and more experienced.
But do you ask yourself questions about what level of sacrifice you'd be prepared to make?
Yes,
For
yes.
example, toes to frostbite.
Yes.
Would that be an acceptable?
So we there's 4 of us that skied to the South Pole,
Right.
and we were genuinely having body part value conversations en route. So on day 1, when you've invested a year of training, but you haven't invested, freezing -40 conditions, you're saying, would you be prepared to lose the end of an ear or a piece of finger? And there was yes and no answers to that. So
Well, easy one for you, Sheku. Ear.
Yeah.
Finger.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not going to lose a finger, are you?
And I don't think I was prepared to lose body parts. But on day 45, when you have risked your life and invested all that energy and effort, and you're 1 day from the South Pole, are you then prepared to lose the end of a finger, sort of thing? So
What was your answer?
It did change over time, really. I mean, we were sensible, we were intelligent, we went in, sensibly. with all the intelligence and the preparation and the equipment. But I did actually get quite a nasty cold injury on day 7, despite all the prep and the right clothing. So yes, I've just literally written a book called Live Life to the Full, because I do believe that we can savour the moments but also seize the day. So there's big adventures, there's walks in the woods, but there's also just noticing the cobweb in the morning sort of stuff. So it all adds up to that amazing thing we call life. So I do get slightly bored walking around supermarkets, and sometimes I have to give myself a challenge to do it as quickly as possible or something like that, just to keep it interesting.
Well, thank you to all our guests. That is it for today, and a nice note to leave it on, I think. Thank you to Ray Mears, to Paula Reid, to Sheku Kana-Mason, Charlie McDonnell, and to you for listening. From all of us, remember you can catch all the details of the show on today's programme on the website, bbc.co.uk/radio4.
And don't forget, the full horror of the Panto picture is up on Twitter now.
You say horror.
Oh, no,
I say...
No, it's not.
Oh, yes, it is.
Until then, from all of us, goodbye.